guys, welcome to a very exciting game of the FIDE Grand Swiss tournament. This tournament is being held in the Isle of Man and this game is being played in round 10. The players are Alexander Grischuk and David Hovell. David Hovell has the white pieces while as Grischuk has the black pieces. An interesting fact about these two guys is that they both love time trouble, meaning they spend a lot of time in the initial phase of the game where they try to be perfect in every move, and eventually they spend a lot of time in these initial moves and they don't have much time towards the end. So let's get into the game. We have knight to f3. This is a ready opening by David Hovell. We have knight to f6 and now c4. This now turns into the English opening. b6 and now g3. Both players trying to fianchetto the bishop on this long nice diagonal. Both bishops will be staring at each other. We have c5, not immediately fianchettoing because you have a lot of time. And now bishop to g2. White wants to fianchetto it as soon as possible. So bishop to b7, that is. And now castles. We get e6 and knight to c3. Bishop to e7 and d4. Even though this looks pretty simple and a solid structure, both players take a lot of time to make these moves, at least 5-10 minutes every move, calculating all the variations. And that's their style of play. That's how they play all the tournaments. We have c takes d4 and now queen takes d4. Castles by black and rook to d1. Queen to c8, and this is a Grischuk specialty. He always plays queen to c8 whenever it's possible. Bishop to f4 and now rook to d8. Bishop to b5 and d5. An interesting move here, d5. After this move, there is one very interesting line that I would like to show you, which Hovell mentioned in the after interview after the game. That move is knight to c7. Pretty interesting. You obviously cannot capture it and you are definitely going to pick up this rook. But it's completely fine. There is nothing wrong with this move. And even if you allow the captures, it's completely okay. But here's how the variation actually goes. We have d takes c4 and now queen takes c4. Knight to a6, now attacking this knight, asking do you want to capture here or do you want to capture the rook. First you get rook takes d8 with check, bishop takes d8 and now rook to c1. So even if you capture, you're going to get bishop captures, and I'm going to show you this variation. So let's get into it. Bishop takes c7, bishop takes c7, knight takes c7, queen takes c7, queen takes c7, rook takes c7, bishop takes f3 and bishop takes f3. After all this Mahabharata, getting some 7-8 pieces off the board, you finally have a bishop and a rook against a rook and a knight. It's always considered to be better in this position, mainly for white, because this bishop comes with a nice attack on this rook here. But once the rook moves, or even you don't even have to move your rook, first you attack the other rook by knight to e8, and then you can eventually move your own piece to wherever you want. But of course, if you move the piece, you're going to drop this a7 pawn. But it's completely fine. It's plus 1.5 for white, but grandmasters can definitely hold this position. This was not played because this is a very sharp line and Hovell did not really have enough time to calculate all the variation, neither did Grischuk, so he wanted to simplify the line. So after d5, not going here with the knight, but c takes d5. Now we have rook takes d5, attacking the queen and also attacking this knight. So the only place you can put your queen is a4. So queen to a4, and now we have knight to a6. Developing the knight, you have to develop it some way. We have knight to d6, now attacking this bishop and the queen. So if you move the queen, your bishop is going to fall. And if you don't want your light square bishop to fall, which is actually a strong piece in the game, you have to give up this dark square bishop. So nonetheless, it forces at least one bishop off the board, so it gets rid of the bishop pair for black. We have bishop takes d6, bishop takes d6, and now c5 attacking the queen. We get queen to a3, and it is important to let you guys know here that both the players had just 15 minutes on the clock. This is just move 15 finished, 16th move, and both players have 15 minutes. It's pretty crazy how both players spend a lot of time in calculating everything, and eventually they end up with less time. But it's okay, I mean, both players had the same time, so it's completely fine. Knight c to e4, now attacking this bishop because Grishchuk wants to get rid of the bishop pair and activate his bishop. We have rook d to c1, now attacking the queen, not immediately moving the bishop. Queen to e8, and now bishop to b4. We get a5 and bishop to e1. Rook a to d8, and now look at this position. It feels like black has a wonderful position. Both the knights are ready to jump into key squares. This knight is controlling a couple of key squares in the white's king's area. We have both these rooks controlling the d file. Your bishop is ready to be launched into the attack, and it's controlling the knight's file. So this position looks pretty great for black, but the engine suggests it's completely equal and it's completely fine because white also has a c file that he can attack, and it should be completely fine. Now we get rook to c2. White wants to double up the rooks on the c file, and now h6. Rook a to c1, and now rook to d1. Pretty interesting move. Queen to b3, and now rook goes back to d6. This is a mistake, but it's not easy to find when you have just 1 minute on the clock. Both the players had under 1 minute on the clock, and they were basically playing on increment, which is 30 seconds of increment after every move. So the idea was correct. You need to have a rook on d6, but it was a wrong rook. He should have placed this rook on e6, and I'm going to show you that variation as well. Rook d8, so this rook goes back and this rook jumps into the d6 square. We have rook takes d1, rook takes d1, and now takes b6. We have queen to d7, and the reason why this should have been this rook back should not have been played is explained later. So let's go back to this position. We have rook d1 to d6, and now knight to e5. This is why you need to have the second rook, because now imagine this rook being on d1, this rook being on d6, and now you can put a queen on d8, and now you completely control this d file. There is nothing white can do about that. So it's a pretty interesting move, and you should have that's what should have been played. But instead, it was a mistake by Grishchuk. He brought this rook back, and the game now continues. We have a4 attacking the queen, but just queen moves, queen to b4, moving the queen. Bishop to a8, going back with the bishop. Now finally, the bishop doesn't really have to worry on the 7th rank, because on the 8th rank, the rook and the queen are controlling it and are protecting it basically. So we have knight to c4. Now attacking the rook. Rook to d4, pinning this knight to the queen, and now queen takes b6. This eliminates one pawn basically for free. I mean, it's not like there is any tricks here. You cannot even capture because it's nicely guarded. So this is basically a free pawn. We have e5, and now queen to c7. Again, both players are under a minute. They're basically playing on increments from here, and it's very hard to find a perfect move for both of them. but still they play top level chess, so they are able to find it. We have knight to d7 and f3, finally pushing this knight back, knight e to c5, and now bishop to f2, attacking this rook and also attacking this this wonderful knight. Knight to c6, now attacking the queen first, getting out of the way, and eventually you're going to move this rook and you should be completely fine. Queen to a7, now keeping an eye on this bishop and this pawn. We get rook to d5, getting out of the way, and queen takes a4. A second pawn grabbed for free. There is nothing black can do, and there are no tricks, because even if you move this knight, opening up an attack, white is just going to capture the queen and try to get as many pieces off the board as possible, march these two pawns forward, get a queen into the game, and checkmate the black king. That's basically the idea. We have knight to d4, and now rook to d2, queen to e6, and e4. Finally, getting rid of this rook from this file, and rook to c5. We get bishop takes d4, he takes d4, and rook takes d4. Another pawn for free. So there is nothing black can do. He just has to wait and see what's going on, because right now his pieces are kind of stuck. This rook is stuck in a bad position. This rook is stuck defending this bishop. This bishop is stuck on these few squares, mainly because it cannot go anywhere, neither can it develop. So pretty interesting position for white, and black has weird pieces on weird squares. So we have bishop to c6, trying to activate the bishop, and now queen to d1, getting the queen back. Now we are attacking this piece, keeping control of this d file. We get rook to b8, and now b3, h5, we get h4, not allowing this pawn to be pushed even further. Queen to e7 and knight to d6. This was the final blow, as Grischuk realized he just had one move to go, and both players will get 50 minutes of extra time to analyze this position. This position already says +5 for white, and there is no point in continuing this position, because these two passed pawns, they are connected pawns, and they will be pretty fast. There is nothing black can do to stop them. I mean, this bishop is coming and controlling this nice diagonal, and you can trade some pieces off, and then it will be completely fine. So in this position, Grischuk resigned. This was just move 39, and David Howell won a wonderful game. Pretty interesting game. They both spend a lot of time initially. I believe that they should play a little bit faster, but if you are not prepared for the game, then it's completely understandable. Having said that, I am going to show you what would have followed if the game would have continued. We have g6, and now f4. Bishop to a8. There is nothing black can do. He just has to keep maneuvering his pieces here and there, hoping white makes a mistake, but he won't. e5, and now rook takes c1, queen takes c1, bishop takes g2, king takes g2, knight to f8. Trying to remaneuver the knight to better square, but it's pointless. Rook to a4. Now this rook is controlling this nice a file and ready to push this pawn further. Now we have queen to d7, attacking the rook, not allowing this pawn to be pushed. We have f5, and g takes f5. Rook to f4. Finally, you're going to pick up this pawn, put some pressure on this pawn as well, and slowly but surely you're definitely picking up all the pawns. Rook to b6, attacking this knight, but just trying to activate it and eventually go to this h file once this knight moves. Just trying to go to king side and try to defend. we have queen to e3, now rook to c6, knight takes f5, and now rook to c2 with check, king to g1, rook takes a2, knight to h6 check, king to h8, and now knight takes f7, again with a check. You cannot pick this up because your rook is nicely protecting this knight. King to h7, and now knight to d6. Rook to a1 check, king to f2, rook to a2 check, king to e1, and king to g8. There is no point in continuing with the checks because you're definitely this king is going to come closer to you, and then you won't even be able to control these two files. You have to again go back, try to find a different way to come towards the king's side. So queen to e4, queen to g7, and now queen to d5 with a check, king to h8, knight to f7 check, king to g8, knight to g5 check, king to h8, rook to f7. Again, you cannot capture because it's nicely being protected. Rook to a1 check, king to f2, rook to a2 check, king to f3, and queen to g8. Now you have to defend this this knight, but you're just going to push e6, knight takes e6, queen takes e6, queen takes f7 with check. You have to give up your queen. This is the best variation because you have to prolong the game as long as possible. Knight takes f7, king to g8, knight to g5 check. That's a discovered check from the queen. King to g7, queen to f7 check, king to h8, and queen to h7. This is checkmate. And this is what would have followed after move 40. Once you get 50 minutes extra time, he knew that David is going to take all the time he needs and calculate the perfect combination. So he just gave up on move 39 in this position. A wonderful end to round 10, and there I have prepared some standings for you guys. So here they are. Fabi also won his game. Magnus Carlsen also won his game, and Vishy lost his game against Wang Ho. It was a pretty interesting game. One blunder cost him the entire game. And he just immediately realized that he had blundered and he just resigned, or probably on move 27 or 28. So the top leaders are Fabi, Wang Ho. Fabi is the sole leader with 7.5 points. And Wang Ho has 7 points along with Krill, Carlsen, Aronian, Nikita Vitigo, Hikaru Nakamura, who also won a very exciting game. And David, we have a couple of Davids. Then we get into the 6.5 and then 6. So pretty interesting position on the table. Now we have round 11 that is starting today. I think this will be the final round unless we have a couple of tie breaks, and I will bring you all the updates from round 11 as well. But till then, thank you for enjoying the content. Thank you for subscribing to my channel. Namaste. See you next time.